This podcast is brought to you by Giant Food. And today, more than ever, they are committed to you because we are all in this together so we can continue to share the little things that matter.
Recorded live from the lobby of the Line Hotel in Adams Morgan, Washington, D.C. Full Service Radio is proudly supported and hosted by Simplecast, the easiest way for a podcast creator to publish and distribute audio on the internet. For more information, visit simplecast.com.
Peace, everyone, and welcome to the Edible Activist Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa L. Jones, broadcasting live from the lobby of the Line, D.C. This podcast is where dynamic people of color in the food and agriculture space share their personal food journeys, passions, and perspectives that stem from the land, all exemplifying the spirit of activism in their own edible way. Let's get started. Peace and welcome to the Edible Activist Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa L. Jones, broadcasting here on Full Service Radio. So for today's show, I'm so excited to have Michelle Nelson. She's a garden enthusiast, a food enthusiast, and a farmer enthusiast, we'll say, with a background in environmental science. She has developed curriculum for youth around sustainable agriculture. She has even lectured and is full of energy whenever I see her, full of energy. And she also serves as a program manager with Montgomery County Parks, overseeing 11 of their community gardens in the county. Welcome to Edible Activist, Michelle. I'm so happy to have you.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here, Melissa. Oh,
how are you feeling on this Tuesday?
I'm actually feeling really great. I woke up, I did some self-care. I did a little, facial scrub and actually got dressed. So I'm feeling good.
Good for you, because getting dressed, I don't remember what that feels like. I just roll out the bed and I just start working on my laptop, So, well, I do some things before that. I do read and try to get my mind right, but that's good for you. And I know when I do get dressed, it actually helps me to focus more as if I'm going somewhere. So that's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. So I needed to do that so I could have, good energy to bring to this podcast today. I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, like I said, whenever I see you, you're full of energy, full of joy. I'm not saying that you don't have your down moments. We all do, but that's just something that I know I recognize whenever I'm in your space. And I'm just so grateful for it. So let's get into it. I have to, I really want to bring up, because one of the fondest memories that I have of, you and I both in the same space had to have been a couple years ago when Dreaming Out Loud was hosting an event, and Tambra Ray Stevenson was cooking a meal. It was an event for women, and we were all around. I think we were at I forget the name of the co-working space, but we were all making salads and all these different dishes. And you and I so happened to be on the same dish team. You remember that?
Yes. It's so crazy because when I got your email about this, I was actually thinking about that. And then for some reason, it was around the same time. So, you know how on your iPhone or whatever, it shows you pictures a year or whatever ago. And so our picture came up and I was like, oh my gosh, me and Melissa I think we're making black eyed pea salad or something.
Yes, you're right. And it was such a beautiful time. It was such a beautiful moment.
It was.
It was colorful. It was healthy food. Tambra is amazing. And it really was a sense of community. It really was. And the other memory that we definitely have together, which wasn't too long ago, was the Black History Month event that Marlene over in Parks and Planning and that entire committee had put together over at the Garden Center. Forgive me, I'm drawing a blank. And it was
Brookside.
Yeah, Brookside. And it was a full day of just like obviously all things diaspora and dancing and food and just, everything that reflects, the African culture and community and agriculture. So again, just full of energy and just love being in both of those communal spaces with you. And so before we jump into like your actual work with Montgomery Parks and just other things, it seems like you've had an early interest in the sciences. And when I saw, and that's one thing I didn't know, that you had studied environmental science. So I'm just really curious at like, when did you know that that was the field that you want to take up? Because I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know I just don't, when I was coming up, oh, I want to be a scientist or an astronaut or whatever. But I feel like that's intentional. And was it as intentional as it seems?
Yeah. So you brought up such good memories of like us together. I just feel so like energized to, share about myself, and share more about my path. So I would say that, from a very early age, I have always had a sense of curiosity, a sense of exploration. When I was little, like, it's kind of funny because my life kind of came full circle when I started working for parks. Because one of my first experiences with parks, was in elementary school when I went to Maydale Nature Center. And so we were able to do these different scavenger hunts, look at tadpoles, look at the meadow, identify different plants. And when I was little, I was always the girl, the tomboy, but then also the science geek that was, picking up caterpillars and looking at worms and, following the guys into the woods to explore. And I was always outside. And so, I guess in parts of my career, it was kind of like, okay, I need to have some element of 40-60. So it was kind of like 40% or 60%. I need to be indoors and outdoors. Like I can't be in a stale, environment. I need to be outside part of my career. And so in high school, I took all these different classes like AP biology. I used to give my teachers, I'm sure the biggest headaches, but I always loved science. I don't know, it just always made sense to me. I knew different things like the back of my hand. I loved going outside and experiencing education in a different way, where it's actually tangible. You can remember it, better. And so for me, I like did all that through high school, and then I just knew like I want to go do environmental science. Partially because I knew it was going to be a little bit easier for me. I'll be honest about that. I'll be honest about that. I knew that, okay, this degree is gonna come pretty easy because I know my principles. I know certain plants. I know certain, I know this stuff. And so, when I decided to go to college, I knew I wanted to pursue environmental science, but I also knew that I wanted to go to a historically Black college or university. So I was looking at all the institutions that had programs that, they were HBCUs, but then they also had this environmental science component. I wasn't even thinking about agriculture actually at the time. But then A&T came kind of like just by the, I don't even know how I found A&T, but shout outs to North Carolina A&T. Aggie Pride. I know you've had some Aggies on the podcast before. So.
Yes, I have. Shout out to Ronnie, Xavier, and Brittany.
Yes, all fabulous folks. Aside from being Aggies, they are all fabulous folks, all experts, all the things that are Black excellence, and that A&T produces. So I mean, I could have gone to like University of Maryland Eastern Shore, but I was like, that's too close to home. And then there were a couple of other institutions that were really pushing me into the biology field, but I really was stuck on environmental science. So, I definitely have continued this I guess, thirst for knowledge and thirst for exploration through nature. And so at A&T, I was kind of bamboozled because I thought I was going to be learning about like air quality and all this stuff. And that was not what the curriculum was at all. The curriculum was more earth science heavy. It was definitely more soils intensive. So I was learning, I actually stepped into a new path without even really realizing it. And so I was learning more about agricultural practices and principles, and I was going to the farm. A&T has this amazing educational farm. It's a land grant institution, so a lot of classes use the farm as a teaching resource. So I was going to the farm and learning on the farm about soils, and I would be the only person in some of these classes. So it was very one-on-one teaching, one-on-one education, one-on-one experiences. And then I took a couple of other different routes, but I always knew that I wanted to have that 40-60. I don't know why that always stuck with me, but I could not be in an office space forever, and I needed to always be outside. So I don't know, that kind of led me down this path of environmental science and agriculture and sustainability. But yeah, I mean, I'm so thankful every day. Like yesterday, I went on a hike, actually in the park system, and I saw an owl, and I was just so excited and, re-energized.
I love that. I love that so much. And it's so interesting. One of the things I never, and not that these shows are about me because they're about you all. When you were talking about your experience, as a youth and just, being that tomboy and, picking up caterpillars, and that you were actually describing partially, not all of me, but a lot of my youth that I don't ever really talk about, Michelle. So as you're talking, it's just like all these experiences just started, like, these past experiences just started like blooming and just started coming out because I was climbing trees, I was digging in dirt, I was picking up caterpillars, we were catching fireflies, all of that. Now, needless to say, I didn't even think about studying environmental science whatsoever, nothing in the sciences. I thought I was going to be a physical therapist, and I was just like, this is too much science and math for me. No, thank you. But I think that was the classroom. So when you say that you would oftentimes be, in the classes, and there wouldn't be that many of you, it's almost like that was just you going back to where you were before and where you knew, and being outdoors and just experiencing, being outdoors in that classroom setting. But it wasn't a classroom when you were in that space, but you were physically in the classroom setting, at school. So I don't know if that
Absolutely.
makes sense, but whatever. I
No,
think you get
totally.
what I was trying to say.
I totally get what you're trying to say. It's the balance of, providing these opportunities for yourself to not only learn in a classroom, but also like learn outside of the classroom. And I think
Absolutely.
that applies to everyday life, and I that's why I continuously still am trying to touch base with youth and share my stories when I can, because I think sometimes as adults, we forget, there's a lot of talk about all this inner child stuff, but that stuff is very important. And you remember why you maybe went on a path that you weren't expecting, or you remember how you were. And that all that stuff applies to your daily life and the career path that you're on. So I think it's
So
very important.
So spot on. And that's what I was more so referencing, like the inner child. And you cleared that up. Thank you. I have my days. But you got what I was saying, okay? You got me, boo.
I
That
did. I
that
did.
but that inner youth, it is. And when people ask you to go back to that inner youth, and that's what I did, I was just like, oh my goodness. Like that was me. That was me. And that was you. That's so awesome. That is so awesome. Well, speaking about youth, I know that working with youth is something that you're really passionate about, when it, in the space of agriculture and gardening. And so definitely. I mean, a couple questions that I want to ask you, but just mainly, what do you feel the future holds for our babies, and let's just say specifically those, in high school who want to get into this space? Like, what do you feel like your outlook is, what the future holds for this younger millennial generation? I don't know what the class is underneath the millennials. What do you feel like that holds? Because again, I know you're passionate about working with youth and just really wanting to like let them know about your experience and that this is a thing and you can turn this into a profession, a career, entrepreneurship. But just want to get your take on what you feel like this space of agriculture holds for youth.
Yeah, so I had like the amazing opportunity to work with this organization in DC called After School All Stars. They predominantly work with middle school students. So I'm going to talk a little bit about like middle school, then high school, then like college level. I guess they would be considered, I don't know, Gen Z or something. I
Something,
get those things
something. One of
mixed
them.
up. Yeah, I get them mixed up. But so working with middle schoolers, oh man, they are a rambunctious group. They are outspoken. I teach classes with them. It is like an urban agriculture and a cooking class before, COVID-19 happened. But they are very honest. They do not like certain veggies. They do not like trying certain things unless it has Parmesan cheese on it or unless it has a certain sauce on it. And they really taught me how to have a different outlook on food and how to really respect where people are coming from when it comes to food. I think across the diaspora, but also just in the nation right now, we're seeing a lot of people impacted by COVID-19. And so they always just maybe remember, hey, Miss Michelle, like, I don't like that. And that's because my mom cooks it this way, or my grandma uses a special spice or whatever it is. So I'm actually optimistic for them because I think they're gonna come up. They are already in a completely different world than me. Like they were doing those TikTok dances while we were cooking, and I was like, I have no idea what y'all are doing. But okay, I just hope that applies somewhere in your life later on. And I think about, me memorizing like lyrics from middle school. So, I mean, they still stick with me now. So they're still like sponges. And so when they matriculate to high school, the high schoolers, I just recently sat on a panel in Montgomery County that was talking to these high schoolers. We watched this film, Biggest Little Farm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually impressed with the questions that they were asking me. How do you still have hope in a world where these huge agricultural businesses are the monopolies of the world and they are running our food system? How do you still have hope in the little things that you're doing? So they're asking the right questions. And I think they're also, they are understanding more about how the world is more connected. I don't know if that's because of technology and social media, if that's because they're growing up in that age, but hearing someone who wants to become a politician or a mayor talk more about, how can I create policies that will impact planning, or how can I create policies that will help people use SNAP benefits, and these are the youth that are going to help create these things in the future and hopefully make things better. And the college level students, they're kind of like in the middle. It's very interesting. I worked with this organization called the Ecological Society of America. And so we were trying to create this pipeline or this program where students who are in undergraduate studies and then early career scientists, quote unquote, everybody's a scientist, but sometimes these organizations label scientists only because they're doing research or only because they have certain credentials, which is not true. I'm very passionate about that. I think everybody is a scientist or has a scientist in them. And
Mm.
so like the college
Including me,
students,
Michelle? Is there a
yes,
science? Okay.
absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
girlfriend. All right. Thank you.
there's a science to this whole podcast, and yeah, there's a science to everybody. Everybody has their own science and applies it. So um the college students is very interesting because they are looking for the how to, like what are the steps, the ABCDEFG to how I get to where you are. And so they're really looking for I don't want to see necessarily the rags to riches. I want to see like how I can just get to the riches. And so it's very interesting when I was mentoring them, because they are still coming up with ideas and they're perfecting certain processes and systems that we went through, but they are coming at it from a different perspective, I think. I guess I still remain hopeful, especially for like the high schoolers that I talk to. They really helped me just remember that there are still people out here that think and that question things, and that do the research for themselves or want to learn how to do some research. And
Wow.
so I think when it comes to like environmental science, when it comes to the agriculture world, um, all of them across the board that are coming up after us, they're really working to dispel some of the myths that we're kind of unlearning, I guess, in like the 30s to like early 40s. We're kind of still unlearning some of those things or really starting to question them. And this is
Right.
so I think they're really coming into an age where they're seeing a lot of truths up front. Like they don't have to go through so much of the, I don't want to say hazing, but like the trial and error, I mean, in life you're still gonna get bumps and bruises, but they are definitely overcoming some of those challenges and asking the right questions to how they can avoid some of those challenges to be successful.
Wow. That was a really great breakdown. Really great. Really great. Thank you for that. And definitely an inquisitive generation for sure. And when
Oh
you said the
yes.
middle schoolers are rambunctious, I remember I remember being in middle school. It was no picnic.
Yes. Yes. And I will say that all of the HE double hockey sticks that I caused in middle school is definitely came back or comes back multiple times when I'm working with them. So and I love it because these students look like me. They are quote unquote urban children. They are Black, beautiful, brilliant children that take cooking and innovate and create and add and ask me, how can I make this better? Do you have the recipe, Miss Michelle? And they know when I come and I'm not feeling as energetic. They know, and they say, Miss Michelle, what's up with you? Like you can't come up in here like this. And I just love it. I really love that authenticity and that care, I guess, because now I'm at a place where I can like reciprocate that. So working with middle schoolers is it's a lot, but I do love it. They are creatures. They are creatures. That's what I always call them. I always call them creatures. Yeah.
Trying to find themselves, trying to find themselves. All right,
Yes.
we're gonna take a really quick break and we'll be right back. You're listening to Perfect Day, produced by Artists Authentic. For more of Authentic's work, visit allornothingstudios.com. This podcast is brought to you by Giant Food. Whether you are concerned about diabetes, heart health, losing weight, or just want to improve family meal times, Giant has a team of nutritionists ready to help you make the best decisions to meet your health and wellness goals. You can check out their personalized consultations online or by phone. Just go to giantfood.com/nutrition, or they have nutritionists who are available to answer any of your questions at nutrition@giantfood.com. So, Michelle, you have a lot on your plate, it seems, at Montgomery County Parks, with overseeing these 11 garden sites. And I knew that you had been in that position for quite some time, and not parts of me, but I'm just like, ooh, like 11 community garden sites, like that sounds like that's so much fun, and I know it is. And community gardens are just fun to people, right? But there's also, so we're going to jump into just like your actual role and some of the responsibilities you have, but also like the operations and business side to it, because though it's a communal effort, and folks love being a part of them, there's definitely upkeep, there's budgeting, there's like all the backside stuff to make sure that they're running smoothly and effectively, and all that other good stuff. So let's just touch on your role as program manager at Montgomery County Parks.
Yes. So everything you said is true. So I have been the program manager with Montgomery Parks for community gardens for 3.5 years now. And this is the longest that I've ever stayed at a job. So that's a good sign.
Sorry, you're not laughing. Good for you.
Right, exactly. That is a good sign.
Yes,
and I'm happy. Yeah. So, my role specifically, I like to break it down because there is a lot to the role. So I like to break it down into like 4 buckets. So the first bucket is I'm responsible for identifying new or potential land expansion opportunities to expand our program. The second bucket is kind of like internal and external stakeholders. So within those 11 community gardens, I manage about 22 volunteers, and then I have just under 500 gardeners that report to me, or I'm responsible for, basically. And then I have an education bucket. So 2 summers ago, I started this speaker series that was basically highlighting the underdogs in Montgomery County, in the food system in Montgomery County, having them come out to do like a quick hour-long conversation about what they do, how they got here, those sorts of things. And then we have a fourth bucket that is kind of like, I guess it would technically be 5 buckets, but the fourth bucket is reducing food waste and kind of encouraging gardeners to donate their extra produce to these different food organizations within Montgomery County. And then I also kind of, in terms of garden expansion, I kind of lump maintenance and making sure that certain things are done, administrative tasks, all of that is kind of under garden expansion and administrative tasks, if that makes sense. And this is a very like quick and dirty version.
I was say, well, that was a lot.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
was a lot. I know there's more meat to the bones. I'm sure there is.
Yes, and I'm happy to expand and dig in anywhere, but I always try to make that as succinct as possible because there is so much to the job and to the organization as well.
And that's exactly why I wanted to acknowledge in that way, because it's so easy for anyone to think, oh, she just manages, 11 garden sites, which within itself, I mean, just saying that is a lot, but there's so many layers to it. And just all the folks that you said that report to you, like that's a lot. So that's a lot of emails. That's a lot of inquiries.
Yeah, yes, exactly. I mean, like day to day, it really changes. Like this week, because of COVID-19, I've been trying to send out, these biweekly updates that just have different guidelines and different tips for people to, explore. But then I'm still going out to gardens because in Montgomery Parks, the community gardens are not closed. So I'm still going out to gardens. And another part of my job is doing inspections. So if I go out to a garden and I see that there are certain things that, a gardener didn't clean or maintain their plot properly, I normally send them a check-in email. If times were normal, I would be sending them a violation and then potentially kicking them out. So, there's a lot of pieces to like the good guy and the bad guy of this position. And then also just trying to expand the program, looking at parkland. When I stepped into this role, I really became, going back to like Molly, I really started becoming a planner in a way because I'm looking at how land is used, how it's allocated, how we are properly using it to enhance communities that may have food insecurity challenges. Because our program before was very opportunistic. It was a little bit more suited for I will be frank to the middle-aged white woman
Mm-hmm.
who
Mm-hmm.
may be interested in just hobby gardening. And so really trying to turn that upside down and say that, okay, yes, we have people in our program that are interested in doing this because it's a hobby, but we also have an incredible international presence. And then we also have people who are food insecure in our program who are using this small allotment of land to actually feed their families throughout the summer and beyond.
That is
And then
awesome.
when it comes to like budgeting and management, I'm managing 2 budgets. So that thankfully that's a one major difference I think with some of these different models across municipalities or amongst government run programs is that the funding, like we're not a nonprofit. So it's thankfully there are funds that are allocated to help me support, like actually making sure that, a deer fence is replaced or we can pay for compost because we haven't had our compost screened. So these sorts of things are really help me to do my job better. But, we still are trying to make the plot rentals like affordable and accessible for county residents. And a lot of people think, oh, Montgomery County is so rich. It's so this, it's so that. And, I'm a Montgomery County native. And, people will be really surprised. There are some pockets in the county that are more like some of our, I always hear people talk about Ward 7, Ward 8. I hear people talk about pockets in Prince George's County. The same thing is the case in Montgomery County. We still have some places that are, food insecure or the old term of food deserts, but we still have similar challenges in the county. And it's my responsibility as an employee to make sure that I allocate the resources that I'm responsible for in a way that is fair, appropriate, and makes sense. I'm all about things making sense.
Michelle, I'm so glad you pointed that out. And first of all, thank you again for breaking all that down because, in talking a lot about food justice issues and food insecurity, on this platform and so much more, it's very important to expose and discuss the logistics to it and that it's an entire operation. As much as community gardening is great, there's a lot of work that goes into it. But also just back to your note about Montgomery County being some parts and pockets being as food insecure as parts in DC and Prince George's County. I mean, oh my gosh, I grew up in Montgomery County. That's where I'm not native to Montgomery County, but that's where I grew up, where my family moved when they came from the South. And that's what I heard all my life. Montgomery County is so rich. And so, well, first of all, I didn't grow up rich at all. I didn't grow up poor, but I didn't grow up rich. And I didn't grow up with a silver spoon in my mouth either. And, I have friends who grew up all over Montgomery County, and you would go in some of these pockets, and I'm like, this this isn't the Potomac you guys are referencing. This isn't Bethesda, you know? It's
Mm-hmm.
really real. I mean, just a few days ago, I was in an area in Montgomery County, and I was like, whoa, it's real. Can't, not comparing it to an Anacostia or certain parts of Detroit or even Philadelphia, but you're so
Right.
right. And I'm so glad you said that. And it needed to be said because it is an issue in Montgomery County. And they don't talk about it a lot because, Montgomery County has been on this bar, has had this standard,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not discrediting it. I went to school here. And it at one point it had like the best, schools in the county. But from a food standpoint, you're so right. And I'm so glad you said that. And somebody else needed to hear that too. So thank you. Thank you for highlighting.
Yeah, definitely. And just to your point about growing up in the county, I mean, yeah, I I when I became an adult and started like going to these meetings, I think one thing that I have a lot of friends who we didn't even realize how quote unquote poor or how like middle class or whatever the term you want to say or label it or category, we didn't even realize it until like we were adults. And for me to be sitting in some of these meetings and listening to them talk about where I grew up and saying that it's this, it's that, and all these negative things. It was really on some level it was really heartbreaking, and then on another level it was like, wow, okay, I really saw like it was like two Michelles like looking at each other because it was just like that was never my reality, thankfully, when I was growing up. But I had, my parents divorced when I was 7. So my mom was supporting us, and there were times I even like growing up now or being an adult, I look back and I'm like, oh, was that maybe like, did I not have food at that time? Like, just thinking about it and then just really coming to the realization that, oh, okay, perhaps that was actually what it, and I think that goes back to why I probably resonate so much with the work a lot more than I probably even realized, until like now I'm coming into these meetings and listening to demographics and statistics and saying I'm definitely not that statistic, but then saying, wait, hold on, maybe I am
Mm-hmm.
that statistic. So thankfully I will say that in Montgomery County, I don't know how many years ago, probably 2 or 3, they came up with this really cool tool, and it was the Food Council. They came up with this tool. It's called Food Stat, and so just tying it back into everything. We use that information. It basically looks at all these different barriers to food security or food insecurity, and it maps it. So you can go to any place in the county and you can look at what the food insecurity rate is. And so that is how I'm using that information to kind of give my program more, more meat and more substance, because I think, like I said, going back to like the hobby gardener, yeah, it's really cute that you come out and you garden and you harvest your greens or you make pesto, but if we can align this with what's going on in the county and actually place gardens where people would actually maybe use this resource to cut their costs down at the grocery store or cook with something that they've never cooked with, or learn how to actually grow and how to be self-sufficient, like our program would go to the moon and back, So yeah, I think it's really important to always tie into that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I love there was I think you might have said this on LinkedIn. I can't remember. Especially, during these times of COVID-19. You said, in the midst of such an unsettling time, it is incredibly humbling to provide a safer space for people to get their minds off the world for a bit, work the land, and plant seeds that will grow. So true. So true.
Yes. And I love going out and seeing my gardeners because most of the time they also give me free produce. So,
Let's be real.
yeah. So, I
We get
mean,
the real giveaways,
yeah,
okay?
it's a win. It's really a win-win. You know, I get to talk to them, I get to see them, make sure that they're safe and make sure that they're healthy. And they're doing all those things. They're planting seeds, they're checking in with me, but then when I go out there, I'm most likely gonna come back with some spinach or some, some herbs. So it's just a great way. Every time, whenever I'm feeling kind of like, how am I going to get these things done? Or I have to do my budget. Most of the time I go out to the gardens and I see people and they are just so appreciative of the work that's happening. And it just reminds me like, okay, Michelle, like this work is impactful. This work matters. And so that's so important in anything that you do to just make sure that as much as you're giving into it, somewhere you can find a way to like just give that back to yourself.
Wow. Wow. Well, we're going to close out in just a moment, Michelle. I really enjoyed learning more about you. I don't know that we've ever, even though we've been in the same space a couple times before, I've never gotten down to like the meat of things or to the root of who you are. And I know there's so much more. And you are just shining over there, and you're shining because you love what you do. And not only, I know in the beginning I introduced you as an enthusiast, but you are enthusiastic about your work. You're passionate about it, and you're all about community as well. So it really does show. It really is a reflection of who you are. So, and I was totally fed today by your words. Totally fed.
Oh,
I just want you
thank
to
you.
know
I'm
that.
so happy to hear
Yes,
that.
yes. Trust me, I see it. I totally see it. And so, lastly, before we get into our rapid fire, and you can tell folks, where to find you, in this time of isolation, literally, for a lot of folks, and managing these garden sites and being part of community, and just even my couple experiences that I've had with you in a community setting. And for some folks, if not a lot of folks, they may just feel alone or lonely. And because it's just weird. It's just all just weird. It's really the only word I can
Mhm.
describe. It's just all weird. So if there's just any words of encouragement, just given, you being really rooted in community and witnessing others being part of a community to grow, like what would those words of encouragement be?
Well, I would say, oh man. I would say that if you are not growing food, maybe try it because this is a time where you actually have time to do it and have
Mm-hmm.
time to explore it. But I also want to say that if you're feeling lonely, like this is a time to really something that's helping me is going inside of myself and really taking time to do things that make me happy. Like that hike yesterday, I felt so good. And I think also facing the fear, but also acknowledging the fear. Like, yes, there's a lot of crazy stuff happening right now, but you can filter out what you're looking at. You can figure out what really recharges and refills you. And get into that. I mean, and don't be discouraged. Just take it day by day. That's like been every morning when I wake up, I'm like day by day, because
That's
it
all
is
we got.
challenging.
That's
Yeah,
all we
it's
got.
challenging. It is so challenging.
Mm-hmm.
But just continue to do things that make you happy, and grow something. Grow something. Plants will inspire you.
They
I'll say
will.
that.
They will. Michelle, where can folks find you?
So I can be
We want to be
found.
found.
I do want to be found, but I'm working on a couple things, so I don't have like a super like platform where I want you to go just yet. So
That's okay.
be on the
That's
lookout
okay.
for that. But I am on Instagram at Man Natural Type 2.
Spell that out. Spell that out for folks.
MANNATURLTYPE. So literally man, natural type, and then the number 2.
All right, you heard her. Go follow her. Go check her out.
And you can find me if you Google Parks Community Gardens. You will also find my work email, and you'll find pictures. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. It's Michelle A. Nelson. Michelle with 2 L's, not one. No diss, but 2 L's. And everybody else that's been featured on this podcast knows how to find me too personally. So I'm just so thankful to be here to be on this amazing platform that Melissa has created.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Yeah, I love these podcasts because they just also energize me. It's like, yes, there are other Black beings doing this, and
Yes.
someone is highlighting and documenting it. So
yes.
I'm so happy to support you and to be here. So find me, girl,
Awesome.
something.
Well, we're gonna do. You're not off the hook yet because we are gonna do a quick rapid fire. Then I'll let you go. Are you ready?
Awesome. I'm ready.
All right, Michelle. What is your favorite veggie?
Pak choy right now.
I can dig it. I love me some bok choy.
Yeah, because
What is your favorite fruit right now?
My favorite fruit right now, mango and grapefruit.
Yum. Girl, I had a mango yesterday. I was so mad when I was done with it because it was so good and it was done. I murdered it.
I know that feeling.
I murdered it. Murdered, okay? Sweet, spicy, sour, salty, savory, or bitter?
Sweet and salty is always my guilty pleasure and my go-to. So sweet and salty.
Okay. And what's been on your playlist heavy these days?
The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill is always in rotation over here.
Better say it. Okay, you are definitely the homie. You are the homie.
That album is always on rotation, and I've also been listening to a lot of Anita Baker, and then I've been listening to some really like Don Toliver, Thundercat, just like really alternative, I guess, quote unquote. Yeah, like just random things that I find on Apple Music. Someone told me I need to get on Spotify so I can get more random music, but yeah.
Yep. Awesome.
I'll make my way there.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you again for being on the show, and peace, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. We are here live on Full Service Radio every Wednesday at 11 a.m., where you can catch today's episode on fullserviceradio.org, as well as iTunes and Spotify. Be sure to follow me at Food Talks in Color on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Are you an edible activist? Sure you are. Come join me on the show. I would love to feature you. Just shoot me a DM on the gram. Peace and blessings all. And remember, there is no culture without agriculture.